The world has changed. I feel it in the water and on Twitter. I feel it in the earth and on TikTok. I smell it in the air on YouTube and Reddit. Much that once was is lost, for none now game who remember it. Some games go down in history as one of the greats. The Witcher 3, Age of Empires 2, Civilization 5, Half-Life 2, Mass Effect Trilogy, Zelda, Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. It's hard to say that one is better than the other. They're all children of their time, often connected to franchises that inspire emotions and nostalgia. Oftentimes they age well, but not always. Usually I would say it's not possible to say that one is better than the other. But 2023 has honestly come out with an insane amount of games this year. That's really great. I've played games this year that had they come out last year or the year before, I would have considered them to be among the best that year. But in 2023, they are overshadowed by plenty of others. This year has probably given us more of the greats than any other year in history of gaming. But they were all of them deceived, for another game was made. Larian forged in secret a master game, and in this game they poured their love, hard work and passion to attract all gamers. One game to rule them all. Sorry, I just recently rewatched Lord of the Rings for the 500th time or something. Might have rubbed off a bit. Baldur's Gate 3 is a digital adaptation of Dungeons & Dragons, just like its predecessors. But this time around, it's based on the 5th edition rules, and not the rules of the, Advanced 2 or whatever it was back in the day. Those rules come with benefits, but also a few of the quirks of D&D. We'll get into the details further in. I've played tabletop RPGs for well over a decade at this point. Granted, very little D&D, although I have dabbled in it a little bit. Me and my group always found D&D to be too combat-focused, with their hundreds of spells and skills used in combat, chasing numbers. Around the table, we want more role than play, so to speak. Combat encounters and dungeon crawls are quite a small focus for us, and to be frank, those are the parts where D&D really shines. So, of all of the tabletop RPG systems out there, Dungeons & Dragons has always been one of the best suited for video game adaptations in my eyes. Combat in D&D happens in turns, with initiative order based on a character's speed and such. The old Infinity Engine games, like Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, interestingly instead used a real-time system where you could pause, translating those turns into units of time that they're meant to mean. Baldur's Gate 3 instead opts to sticking closer to the rules of the source material. And Baldur's Gate 3 uses these rules incredibly well. Combat is probably the deepest I've ever experienced in a video game. But what's even more exciting is how well it's used outside of it too. While just traversing the environment, you'll have the game roll dice to see if you discover hidden things, meanings, or facts. Dialogue is full of rolls for realizing hidden undertones, actively intimidating enemies, or remembering obscure knowledge. You can use your combat skills outside of combat whenever you want to come up with a good use for it, like exploding those boxes of flammable material from a safe distance so that the trap that you know you can't disable won't kill you. You can even do the opposite. The Levels 2 spell Arcane Lock. It's a spell that for the duration of it, it will lock a door or container. Magically. But why would that be useful in combat, you might ask? Well, because you can use it to lock a door, and then the reinforcements of the enemy boss can't get into the room, leaving you alone with the boss in a room much easier to kill, for example. Or maybe you can lock them in a room that you've set on fire and then they can't get out of the fire. Great examples for such a small thing. Or maybe you can find a way into the next room. Why not try to use a spell like Misty Step or Dimension Door to teleport yourself through a window from a roof on the house on the other side of the alley? Or why not, well, you get the idea. There's a lot of creativity at your disposal, just like with real-life tabletop RPG sessions. And it's cool. The world that Larian has built here is never dull. The world is colorful, vibrant. And the game features several different regions that, while they are all distinct and large and with a certain look to them individually, are vastly different from each other. The dark purple and red in the opening scene in Avernus is a stark contrast to the lush wilderness of the beginning of the first act. The Underdark is a colorful yet dark beauty with luminous plants and magic lighting up the pitch blackened stone. The mountain paths and Shadowland stand in immense contrast to each other, and the city of Baldur's Gate itself is an artistic marvel that stands out significantly from the Shadowlands that you were in before. And on the more technical side, the graphics are very good. They're not the photorealistic levels that you maybe started to see from other titles of late, but that's not to say that the game doesn't look good. It does. For a game where such a big part is spent in dialogue scenes with cutscenes, the textures and character models all look great. And the use of motion capture technology for seemingly everything has really paid off. The body language of even smaller side characters with just a handful of interactions are all natural and on point. The few times where the animations feel a little bit off, it's almost always the player character having the reaction to a choice that maybe wasn't clear as the gesture, or maybe it's the lack of fluidity that comes from the game essentially being paused while you made a choice. At the same time, I can count on my hands the amount of times I've come across this in the many hours spent in the game. It's just not a thing. The voice acting is some of the best I've heard in a game ever.
This will do. I don't know if I can do this, now that I'm here. Alright, just stay close.
Emotional beats feel heartfelt and real. Moments of anger sound fiery and believable, and even just plain everyday conversations are captivating and natural.
Fuck's sake. Mountains as far as the eye can see. Guess that explains the voices. From that peek I got into your head, you've made some inroads trying to get the thing sorted.
There's a wide array of accents, and they've all worked great. For a silent protagonist, except the occasional "watch out, there might be a trap there" and the like.
Washing my pits, this is the song when up, aye!
Playing as a bard on my main playthrough has been great. It's been great hearing all of the quips and insults that he throws at enemies whenever they miss. I read somewhere that there are almost 100 different ones of them, and I think there are like 4 voices you can choose from, or maybe it's 8 voices. Yeah, that's insane.
Never wanted the easy path.
Usually, video game developers will hire on a contracting composer to write a certain amount of music for the game.
I've got a reason of my own for...
Larian Insane made the quite rare choice a while back to hire composer Boruslav Slavov on as a salaried employee. This, I've learned, has several results in licensing and the like, but the more prominent effect is probably the amount of music, because there is so much of it. From bards being able to play several tracks on their instruments and all instruments being able to play it in any amount of combinations. You can have a full orchestra, or you can just have like 2 instruments. There's so much music. There's a lot of variant ambient music around the world. There are the musical set pieces at important story beats. There's just a lot of variation at every single step of the way. But there are also some very distinct tonal things. For example, and shout out to the YouTube channel Stream Player Gamer here on YouTube, who pointed this out in one of their videos, the battle music pieces all seem to feature lutes playing drone tones or being downtuned. The soundtrack is nothing short of incredible. A certain heroic piece played at a pivotal moment of the second act is by far my favorite, and it's not even on the soundtrack album. Playing a theme that's been established leading up to the scene in a way that just gave me goosebumps. Down the River and Raphael's final acts are two of the most iconic pieces of music that I've heard in years, and the use of music in the game, like for example Raphael's final act, which I won't spoil anything of, and when you meet the Alfira the Bard.
I can't repay. Rest and know that I will pray. Farewell, my dear old friend.
You can try to help her finish writing a song. It's just sublime. And Alfira is one of the thousands of examples of the quality of writing as well. It's a moving back and forth between our main character and this thiefling who's lost her mentor and best friend, comforting in this moment of grief while they together try to finish her song. At least when I played it. Like many other interactions to the game, there's never just one path. I've said it before and I will say it many more times, the writing is just impeccable. While the premise of the main storyline seemingly is very much save yourself, save the world, albeit with several twists and turns that keeps you guessing every step of the way, the characters you interact with along the way comes across as believable and, more importantly, human, or elven, or you know what I mean. And it's not just the key characters and companions either. Small characters with nothing more than the purpose of filling out the world, like the sleeping bear, or the infamous squirrel in the druid groves, or the alchemy-interested drow in Moonrise Towers. They'll feel like true characters captured in a moment for the story that you're experiencing, rather than filler lines that could have belonged to anyone, as is so often the case in video games. And upon reaching the final third act of the game, the bustling city of Baldur's Gate itself, this illusion still remains intact. And it's helped along by the incredible cast of companions and villains you'll meet along the way. Shadowheart's mysterious past is a blast to uncover. Gale's complicated past with the goddess of magic equally so. They all feel alive, real, and I genuinely care for these characters. I want nothing more than to save Karlach from her fate, to be at Shadowheart's side as we uncover the truth, to reconnect with Minsc and Jaheira, and to, on my next playthrough, save Will from his deal with the devil, because, well, he's not alive on my current playthrough. And the villains, oh, the villains. Orin is incredibly creepy, Auntie Ethel too, to be honest. Gortash and Ketheric are just incredibly well written to a point where I can actually almost see their point of view, and I can't wait to set them straight. And Raphael, oh, that devil is just something special. In my first playthrough, I've been playing as a bard, and well, things haven't always gone according to plan. Despite talking my way out of an incredible amount of difficult situations, I skipped past a lot of Act 1, and after an incident at a certain inn, the second act didn't make too much sense to stick around in, let's just say that. I have left hundreds of hours of content untouched. And I think that touches on one of the key takeaways I've had. You can't see and experience everything this game has to offer in a single playthrough. To a point where I believe trying to may hinder you from appreciating the magic the game has struck. The magical essence of tabletop RPGs. So do yourself a favor and don't try to see it all. Explore to your heart's delight, but everything you miss is just begging to be seen in the next playthrough. I mainly play the game on Nvidia GeForce Now, with smaller amounts of the game being played on Boosteroid and Shadow respectively. All across the cloud space it's been running smoothly, and with any control methods I've used. And I've truly done all of them. I've played on my phone with both my Razer Kishi and the touch overlay, as well as my Stadia controller on my smart TV and on my PC with mouse and keyboard. And with controller. While the PC interface has a lot of the UI elements, they are clearly described, with mouse over tooltips, and quickly they all make sense. It plays just like an isometric RPG of the past for the most part, with great control of camera and movement though. Finding it hard to figure out how to get somewhere, well, just click and the character will find the easiest route. You want to micromanage the positioning in combat? You know, not a problem. But what has been the biggest surprise in terms of controls has to be the controller layout. I never expected these controls and buttons to translate that well to a controller. But I don't know, it just feels so intuitive, and it works great. All of the actions are moved from a hotbar at the bottom of the screen to a radial wheel, or several radial wheels that are easy to navigate and can be customized, although I never really bothered. And movement with a controller also feels a bit more like any other third-person action game. You also still do have the option to play it like the isometric games. You know, I think you hold down the left stick and then you can zoom wherever you want to go, click, and then they will move there, just like on PC. And I gotta say, as a parent who often has to stop playing quite suddenly, I just have to praise the ability to save anywhere. Like, seriously, you can save in the middle of a cutscene or a dialogue and it will load at the beginning of the line in question on my next load. I can save in the middle of combat, just before the dice roll, or even in the middle of a jump. Yes, I've tried that. It works. I'm not yet at the finale of my first playthrough, but I already know that I want to play it at least 3 or 4 times on my own. And I don't know, I just want to discover all the places that I know I missed. The ones that I don't even know I missed. I want to explore the various paths that I could have taken but didn't. I want to, try good run and evil run. I want to see the origin characters of Karlach, Will, Yale, Shadowheart, and Lae'zel, and Astarion, and the Dark Urge, and explore them deeply. I want to experience the game with more classes, like Paladins, Sorcerers, and Rangers. And I want to play with my wife in co-op, and with my close friends in 4-player co-op, and maybe some of my fellow creators as well. I want to role-play a stupid barbarian in a party of 4, or maybe an insecure wizard. Baldur's Gate 3 is a game that will keep on giving for years to come for me. It truly is a piece of art that simply shouldn't have been possible, but somehow was. To me, the game is, simply put, the best game of all time. One game to rule them all.
Horribly. We have no idea what that does.
And if, or rather when, modding tools and maybe a DM mode like Divinity 2 had becomes widely available, I can't wait to see what else can be done with this. Baldur's Gate 3 is a game that belongs in every home where games are played. It's a milestone that shows that games belong in the great halls of high culture, while also having plenty of silly moments of peak D&D, of course.
No!
No other game has made me laugh, stare in awe, and almost cry as much as Baldur's Gate 3 has. Larian has shifted the bar of what a digital RPG can be. I think there will take years before anyone comes close to this achievement that they have. And I can't wait to see how this game will make waves in the industry for the years to come. Because it will. Like, this game will change the industry. Baldur's Gate 3 has my seal of approval. It is my game of the year already, and my favorite game of all time, finally dethroning Guild Wars 1 that has been sitting there firmly and comfortably since 2006. It may be quite different from its predecessors, but it is a successor worthy of the name. So Larian, Sven Vincke, and crew, thank you. This is a wild ride I never want to get off.